Hello, viewers of The Pioneer. How are you doing? I hope you're healthy and well. As the Pioneer team, we have prepared our report on the Russia-Ukraine war, and I'm here before you again. Today, we will again present to you broad information about the front lines in the war. According to the latest reports, the fight between the Ukrainian army and the Russian army is stuck on 4 front lines. While Russian troops continue their offensive operations on the Donetsk front line, the Ukrainian army is wearing down the Russian army with its defense. Of course, the Russian army has captured some areas on the Donetsk front line. In the face of such intense attacks, it is not tactically logical for the Ukrainian armed forces to defend some areas. Therefore, the Ukrainian armed forces are retreating and rebuilding their defense lines. The work of the Ukrainian armed forces units trying to advance on the Kherson front line continues. So what is the latest situation on the front line? Let's take a look at the developments together. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring you our report on the Russia-Ukraine war. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. And in order not to miss our daily map reports and reports in the agenda, you can also support me and my team by using the super thanks button below the video. Let's start if you're ready. The Pioneer reports. Let's start our report by analyzing the latest developments on the Kherson front line. Intense clashes continue in the region. Marines of the Ukrainian armed forces continue to protect areas in the direction of Krynki. As before, the clashes between the Ukrainian Marines stations in the direction of Krynki and the Russian troops are currently concentrated in the forested areas. According to the information provided by the Russian sources, the clashes show an oscillating character. While Ukrainian armed forces are trying to seize the initiative from time to time, Russian troops are also trying to seize the initiative from time to time. However, as mentioned in our previous reports, in this struggle between Ukraine and Russian troops are at the disadvantage. One of the most important problems in the breakdown in the chain of command of the Russian army. This is one of the biggest factors in the failure of the attacks against the Ukrainian armed forces. On the other hand, the firepower problems of the Russian army, as we have stated in our previous reports, the firepower of the Russian armed forces is insufficient. Of course, there is a firepower. However, this firepower includes only light-range weapons. Therefore, the bridgeheads held by the Ukrainian armed forces in this region can't be cleared by the Russian army. In order to untie the knot in this region, some events have to take place. Firstly, the Russian troops must continue to deprive of the firepower and support to the Ukrainian armed forces must escalate their offensive. If these conditions are fulfilled and the Ukrainian armed forces increase their intensity of the offensive, the Kherson front line may face some changes. Let us continue with artillery activity in the region. According to the latest report, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Ukrainian positions in Velitsnivki, Kherson, Antonivka, Prestepskinki, Tagarivka, and Novotagivka and Taginka. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted positions of the Russian armed forces in Olapristan, Olishki, Poima, and Cossack camps. Now let's continue our report by analyzing the latest developments on the Zaporizhia front line. According to the latest reports, the Russian armed forces launched a series of offensive operations from the direction of Novoprokopivka towards Robotnyo and Novofedoryovka. However, as we have often noted in our previous reports, the positions of the Ukrainian armed forces here are well fortified for defense. It is therefore quite natural that the Russian armed forces have not been able to make any gains here. As in other regions, the Ukrainian armed forces have taken tactical defense positions in this area. The Russian armed forces are currently trying to nullify the achievements of the Ukrainian armed forces in the Zaporizhia front line during the summer and autumn counteroffensives. As you know, these green and blue areas on the map were captured during the summer offensives of the Ukrainian armed forces. After the capture of these areas, the advances of the Ukrainian army slowed down and construction of defense fortifications accelerated. Therefore, we believe that it is highly unlikely that the Russian armed forces will be able to make gains in this region for a long time. There is a similar situation in the Vuhledar sector of the Zaporizhia front line. While analyzing the Zaporizhia front line, let us briefly examine the Vuhledar sector. In the Vuhledar sector, we see that the Russian troops are also attacking Yorkhain and Stromyrsk. However, here too, the Ukrainian armed forces are largely maintaining their defensive positions. Let us continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, Russian artillery units targeted Ukrainian armed forces positions in Polavny, Ptyakhatki, Malaya Sherbianki, Novoandriivka, Orikhiv, and Novodanilovka. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted Russian positions in Sherbianki, Kopani, Novoprokopivka, Verbov, and Novofedorovka. Now let's continue by analyzing the latest developments on the Donetsk front line. As you know, the Russian attacks that have been going on for some time have caused the Ukrainian armed forces to take defensive positions. Offensive operations have largely stopped. Here, the Russian armed forces captured some positions. However, since the Ukrainian armed forces made a tactical retreat, they were able to capture these positions. When we look at the latest attacks in the region, we see that one of the Donetsk front line, after the shelling, Russian troops continued their attacks near Novomykhailovka and Marinka. Here too, the defense forces of the Ukrainian armed forces are preparing to withdraw. We also see that the units of the Russian armed forces supported by the long-range weapons are attacking near Nivolskoye and Permovskoye. In addition, units of the Russian armed forces tried to advance towards Tonskoye and Severnoye with the support of artillery units. However, Russian army did not make any gains during these attacks. Russian troops attacked the Ukrainian army's fortifications from the southeast after the artillery preparations and from the industrial zone near the coke factory in the northeast. However, in these attacks, two Russian army failed to make gains. Russian armed forces continued offensive operations in the Stepnoe area with artillery and aviation support. The Ukrainian armed forces supported by artillery attacked the Slag Hips northwest of Horlivka in order to prevent the redeployments of some Russian troops in this area. In terms of artillery activity, Russian artillery targeted Marinka, Krasnohorivka, Novolskoye, Pobeda, Novomykhailovka, and Pervomskoye. In contrast, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted Sermykhalivka, Karminskek, and Slavny. What do you think? Do you think the Ukrainian army's defense decision was correct? Do you think Russian troops could advance further under these conditions? What do you think about the latest situation of the Ukrainian troops on the Kherson front line? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.